Hola, bienvenido a mi casa. Today we're going to look at making guacamole. Let's get started. First of all, let's check out what we need to do to make this guacamole. First we have cilantro. You can find that in any grocery store, just about. 4 Roma tomatoes. They're all about the same size usually, so you don't have to worry about picking the right size. And 2 avocados, dark in color, and they should give a little bit when you push it in. They shouldn't be hard as a rock. It's hard to find the right avocado, but through a little bit of experimentation you should be able to get used to it. And make sure they are dark. If they're a bright green, chances are they're still rather new and not quite ripe yet, especially if you want to use them today. And we have a Spanish onion. We're going to use about 1/4 of this, maybe a bit more, but this is a rather large one, but it's hard to find smaller ones than that. And the juice of 1 lime, so we're going to juice this guy and put the whole thing in. And then 1 or 2 cloves of garlic, depending on how garlicky you like your dip. So just add accordingly to taste. And what else? And we have salt and pepper. Okay. There you have it. Let's get started. Okay, I've washed and dried my cilantro leaves, the ones I intend to use. And you want to dry them off pretty well so you don't add any more unnecessary water to the recipe. And I'm just going to pick off the nice leaves, leaving the stems behind. The stems just add noise to the recipe, so we just want to keep the nice green leaves. And we're going to fill this up to about 1/2 cup, maybe a tiny bit more, depending on how much you like cilantro. You can add as little or as much as you want of this. Okay, I've got my 1/2 cup of cilantro measured out now. I packed it down just a little bit, just to make that 1/2 cup. And now I'm going to just pour it out here and start chopping it up. Doesn't have to be too fine, but you want to cut it up enough so that it releases the flavor. Just like that. That looks good. I've got a bowl ready here to receive everything that I'm going to cut up, and we'll mix the whole concoction in here. Next, I'm going to work with the Roma tomatoes and get them ready. I'm just going to cut off where they attach to the stem at the top. Just get rid of that little guy. Cut them in half. And what I want to do next is just get rid of most of the seeds and some of the water that's in there. It's again not nice if it's too watery, this recipe. So I just haul out the seeds by hand, and and just get rid of most of the water. Easily done. It's pretty quick. There's a lot of chopping in this recipe, so you have to have some time. I would give yourself a 1/2 hour at least. And then start cutting this up into small 1/2 centimeter cubes. It's about the right size. You can make it as chunky as you want too. It doesn't have to be that small, but it's the way I prefer it. So just cut it into strips like this. And then start to cut it the other way. Just like that. Once you're done, just add it to the bowl with the cilantro. Next, we have the Spanish onion. As I said, we'll use about 1/4 of this, and I will measure it out after I'm done just to see what that comes to in terms of cup size. So I'm just going to cut 1/4 of this guy up instead of cutting him in half. So the same idea as with the tomatoes, about the same size, so I'm just going to slice it this way and then go the other way until we have our onion all cut up. There you go. Just add that to your bowl and keep going till that's done. Okay, I ended up using a bit more of the onion than I thought, and when measured out, it came to 3/4 of a cup. which when put in with the tomatoes is a good ratio of tomato to onion for this recipe. So now we're going to chop up our garlic clove. This is quite a big one, so it might be the only one I add, but if you want to do a couple of smaller ones, that's good to start. What I'm going to do is just crush down on it to break the skin, just like that, and then generally it will come off much more easily than if you didn't do it that way. I'm not a big fan of garlic presses. I like doing it by hand, but if you have a garlic press, that works fine. I just like the fact that it doesn't squeeze the juices out when you do it this way. So I'm just gonna chop it as fine as I can, basically, just so that it can get well distributed throughout the recipe. And I'll keep going with that in a minute to just demonstrate just how to chop it up quickly. Just keep going at it until it gets super fine. Just about like that. That looks good. Now we have 2 ingredients left to add to this recipe, and that is lime and the avocado. We're going to do the avocado at the end because it's the most delicate part of it, and you don't want to overmix or just because it'll start to destroy the avocado. It'll start to fall apart. So I'm going to leave that till the end, and it will oxidize very quickly too. So I'm going to get the lime ready. I'm not going to add it to the bowl yet. I'm not going to add it to this until at the very end. What it does, it'll help stabilize the avocado and will help it stop oxidizing. So I'll just squeeze it. I'm going to roll it out first just to get it a bit softer and easier to squeeze on the juicer. Just cut it in half. And if you have a juicer like this is very handy. It's very quick. Get as much out as you can. You want all that lime in there. It's one of the key ingredients. I would say this and the cilantro plus the avocado itself really make this recipe come to life. So that's that. I'm just going to leave that in there for now and then pour it into the mixture right at the very end of the video. Now it's time to work with the avocado. There's just an easy way to pull this apart. First of all, find the long way and just go all the way around that until you meet back at the other side where you started, and then simply just give it a twist. Just hold on to each half and just give it a twist, and then it just will open up like that. And then that side has no seed, but this side is where the seed is stuck, and the easiest way to get it out without destroying the pulp is just to take your good knife and just jam it into the seed like that, and then give it a twist. Just hold on underneath very securely and just give that a twist, and it will lift right out. And then just knock it off with the knife, put it aside. With a large tablespoon, just start to carefully go around the edge of the avocado pulp and try to get as close to the skin as you can. You get it all because we want all of this, and then it just scoops right out like that. Put that down like that. Do the same to the other half and the other avocado, just like that. Okay. And if there's any brown bits where it's starting to over mature on the edge, just scrape that off. In fact, it's a good idea to buy more than 2 avocados, just in case you get one that's damaged inside and you can't really tell until you get it home and get it opened. So it might be a good idea to have one on reserve just in case one doesn't work out the way you wanted it to. Okay, we're ready now to cut up the avocados. And these ones are just perfect. If they're overripe, then they're almost too soft and hard to manage, and they will kind of fall apart quickly in the recipe. But these ones have just the right texture. They're exactly right for this guacamole recipe. So I'm just gonna kind of slice through them, again making about just over 1/2 centimeter squares, just like almost like the tomatoes and the onions, only a little more coarse, just because it'll tend to break up a bit when in the recipe. So I prefer to make them a bit bigger, and they will downsize once you start mixing it up. So just work with it carefully. Like that. You don't want to overwork it, just handle it as little as possible. Okay, now for the salt and pepper. I've measured out a half a teaspoon of salt here, and you don't want to overdo it at the beginning. This is as much as you want to add to start, and then taste it when you're all done and see if you need to add some more to your taste. And fresh cracked pepper, there's nothing like it. I much prefer it over regular black pepper you can buy. So I'm just going to measure out about the same amount, half a teaspoon. That's about good, and add that to the bowl. So I've just added the salt and pepper on top of the bowl here, and the avocado. I'm just about to stir that in, but before I do that, I'm just going to pour in the lime juice that I created earlier, and our recipe is complete. And now, just want to kind of fold it all together carefully. Don't go too crazy. Again, the avocado is delicate, so you don't want to mush it up if you want it to be a chunky recipe. Just like that. Now, it's a good idea to make this a few hours before you need it. Store it in the fridge until you're maybe about half an hour before you decide to serve it, and let it come back, let it warm up a little bit before you do, just so that the flavors can come through. And while it's in the fridge, maybe a couple hours into the waiting time, I would go in and give it another stir, just to distribute the flavors even more. And that's all you need to do. It looks wonderful, and it tastes even better. I hope you enjoy it. Ciao!